And we do have 50 people in the room or thereabouts. So got to say hello to everybody's checked in. Johnny Knoxville was the first one to check in. M. Colba checked in, as did Padre, Idris Taylor, Mark Miller, Devin Bound, who's early for once, and a whole bunch of other people I saw in the house. A lot of the usual gang is here. I appreciate that. Bob Blah says we're going to have to do makeup work because school shut down early last week. No, that's an example of like a snow day. There's no homework. You just come out ahead somehow. Um, Steve G, hello everyone from San Diego. There you go. Lewis Browning, my NCAA bracket is named Lehto's Law. It has the most wins. Michigan to win. It is in the Izzo time group on Yahoo. Okay, well, Michigan did win yesterday. It was a heck of a game. I watched it. I tuned in just as they were 10 points down. And I thought, well, I'll watch. And then they won it. It was an amazing second half. So there you go. Dave Beto is from White Rock, BC, Canada, where it is raining hard. I got 37 degrees, overcast conditions. We had snow a couple days ago, not enough to stick, but just enough to dust to the ground, and then it all melted. But Michigan taunts us for a while before we actually have a good stretch of weather. Ben Leach checking from Owasso, Oklahoma. We've got an Owasso, Michigan, too. Slightly different spelling, though. I think I've mentioned that before. 69 Coronet 500. Howdy. And Fleetwood. Hey, Steve. Hey, Fleetwood. How you doing, my friend? DePaul 31. Good afternoon, Steve and everyone. Carl's Corner in the house. Ram 50 V8. Hi. Greetings from Interstate 44, just west of St. Louis. Irving Johnson. Hello. Great to have you live, and great to have you as a chatter in the live chat. I am McNathan. Hello, everyone from Sun City Center, Florida. And Skip from Chapel Hill. Emberman 69. DePaul, U of M in the Sweet 16. Yeah, they are indeed. They are indeed. I was talking to somebody yesterday about that. Caleb, my good friend Caleb, don't know if he's in the house yet or not. Don't know if he'll show up today. I think he's on the road. But he was talking about Michigan basketball. And, Heather just sent me a note. Said she'll be in shortly. And you got to remember, there was a time when Michigan started 5 freshmen. They called them the Fab Five. And, there was some controversy about it later on. But if you go back and watch some of the games they played in the early rounds of the NCAAs, these guys were playing like they were kids on a playground having fun, doing stuff that was insane. Of course, Chris Webber and Juwan Howard. But it was a lot of fun. Go back and look up Fab Five highlights, and you will be entertained if you like basketball. Grubby Old Patriots checking in from Livonia, Michigan. Mr. Mamor checking from Jackson, Michigan. And Lewis Browning says my widget got used in the Wild E Coyote. Yeah, in fact, it's right there, right? You can see it right over my shoulder. Right there is the widget, and it's the Coyote strapping an Acme rocket to his back, which never ends well. But Mustang MG05. Hey, from Bay City, Michigan, home of the Bay City Rollers, at least spiritually. Evan Crow from Philly. Toe Twucker, hello from Mojave County, Arizona, except the temperatures of the week in the upper 90s. Wow. Johnny Begg or Yanni Begg, spring in Michigan, 38 degrees F with snow in the forecast. Yeah, I'm not sure about the snow. I'm always skeptical when I see that it's going to be around freezing because it's just a degree or two, one direction or the other can really screw that up. G Keyman 565 on the road but listening. Yeah, don't watch. Although there's nothing to watch. Rick Nurka's checking from sunny Arizona. It's supposed to be 85 today. Can you imagine that? Lewis Browning, how does the Jeep Hot Wheel look? It looks fine. I put it back there somewhere. I'm not sure where. Although sometimes I put stuff on the shelf and I don't catch the fact that I'm not putting it out in plain view, which of course is a legal doctrine. But Irish Scott Ladd says it's snowing in the UP. Oh, the Upper Peninsula gets snow from I don't know, August through May is snow season up there. Summer, as they jokingly say, is 2 weeks of bad sledding. Poor dirt farmer checking in with a cup of coffee. Brent McMahon's coming to you almost live from a moose's body part in Montana. Is that real? Standard deviation, howdy from the real peninsula. Dan Boyd missed 3 minutes. Well, yeah, that's about right. Toxic Yes. Why do you use the widget as the example? Among other things, it's a common use item in economics, but it also is featured prominently in one scene of Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield, which I saw again last week, which of course has the cameo by Oingo Boingo playing Dead Man's Party. And he's in an economics class, and professor's talking about making something. He's, what are we making? And he goes, okay, tape recorders. And Rodney Dangerfield's like, the Japanese will beat us in labor costs. The guy goes, fine, widgets. He goes, what's a widget? He goes, doesn't matter. It's a widget. So Marge N.K. Cavusi's checking in. Good morning and afternoon, everyone. I understand you just did some traveling. I followed you in your travels on Facebook. I was just lurking around. E. Ward, hello. Stive from Virginia. I'm assuming it's a typo, but the E and the I are not near each other. So one of your fingers went wandering quite a bit. Hate Hornets. Hi, Mr. Lehto, checking in from Minnesota. We may absorb Wisconsin and Michigan and form Megasota. Well, we call ourselves the Great Lakes state. I know you guys are the land of lakes. I forgot what Wisconsin. They're like Dairyland or America's Dairyland or something. If Wisconsin is something about lakes, we could come up with some kind of super lake state or something. But there you go. There you go. The dreaded rabble rouser. Yo. The prodigal stranger. He really seems to care about what I have no idea. Rodney Dangerfield on Sam Kinnison's lecture on Vietnam. Oh. Ron Valley High from Northern Illinois. Daniel Kessler, tell that to the IRS that it doesn't matter. What doesn't matter? What you're making? Oh, don't worry, they'll tax it one way or the other. I'm sure they will. Jim Naden, Tipton, Indiana. I sent the Waters Meet Nimrods t-shirt. Thank you very much. I wore that not so long ago. And I believe there's the Waters Meet Nimrods, and then there's a town called Nimrod. I think, is it Wisconsin or Minnesota? I forgot. Johnny Knoxville says we're not the Dairyland anymore. Wisconsin produces less dairy than California. But did they drop the name? Because you can always claim the name. You know, I mean, nobody considers California the Dairyland of America. That's probably the last thing they call California, most people. Oh, boy. STP World, did you see the Looney Tunes the day the Earth blew up? No, I did not. I referenced it in the video, but I've not seen it yet. Doug Jones, did the movie acquire the rights to use the Roadrunner in the movie? Well, the movie's done. And it's just a production company that's buying the rights to distribute the movie, and to put it out. So, grubby old patriot. I always wondered why the coyote didn't take his time and make a better plan. Was he impatient or stupid for the coyote? And they said, for instance, that the Roadrunner can never hurt the coyote. Better a scene later. And so there's a couple funny things, but yeah, the funny thing about the coyote is he'll do something that almost worked and he'll give up and try something else. So big cop, a good day, Steve. Sig 226, the triple Lindy. Of course, that's the dive that he does at the end of the movie to salvage the swim meet. Bob Bong's checking in from Niles, Michigan. Niles, down here. Yeah, Sig 226 reminds us that Back to School was filmed at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I knew that because I had a friend who went there, the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and he went there, I believe, shortly after they filmed there, and that's everybody's talking about it. And whenever I mention, he's, yeah, don't forget, and that I mean, they filmed on a real campus, and that's the one. So, yeah, Johnny Knoxville says, pray for Steve's internet. So, in case you're curious, and I hate to jinx myself, but I don't think anything happened that I could have changed last week. So this week, I ran some tests on my equipment. Everything's fine. So I just decided to just try it again and let's see what happens. So there you go. Richard Achman, hello from San Francisco. Taekwondo guy popped in just in time. We could talk Taekwondo all day long, but it'd be just you and me talking about it. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville, back when Back to School came out, it was a huge deal. Yeah, it's a very good movie. It's interesting. I mean, now the Rodney Dangerfield's not the greatest actor, but he did. I mean, he was playing himself basically, right? So Ben Leach says at least it's not dial-up. How do you know? A 28.8 baud modem. Brian Selt, Rodney Dangerfield was in a bowling league so tough they bowled overhand. Marjan Kekavusi, happy Iranian New Year's, first day of spring, March 20th. So does it float? Does it go to literally the equinox, or is it always March 20th? I'm curious. 69 Coronet 500 says Rodney was great in Caddyshack. Yeah, again, his range is pretty much he plays himself. Johnny Knoxville a 9600 baud. I don't recall if I had one that slow. What was was it 14.4? The earliest of the modern ones that obviously came after 9600. Jay Klein says, I want you to know that I've started my campaign to get you invited to next year's off-road games in the non-off-road driver category. Plan 4 or 5 days off around this time of the year. Yeah, I'll do it. If I got invited, I'd do it. But there's people out there who've got millions and millions and millions more subs, and Google knows about them. So M. Kolba, fax tones. I've still got a fax number, by the way, but I don't have a real fax machine. It's virtual. If you fax me something, it gets sent to me via email. But it does. You can send it through a fax machine to me, and I'll get it. Sig226 says that it came out the same week as Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I did not know that. That sounds about right. Ferris Bueller, of course, was a phenomenon. I remember seeing that at the theater. Marjan says, yes, the exact time of spring, so it changes every year. So that's interesting because, there's no laws handed down from above as to how our calendars work. It's what we decide to do with them. And of course, that's why for the longest time the calendars were off because we couldn't calculate exactly how many days there are in a year, leap years, and all that stuff. And it took us a while to get that straightened out. And we've just decided at one point a long time ago that New Year's Day would fall on the shortest day of the year. And of course, then it shifted because we had the days wrong. And there's a whole thing, but I told you I've read a book about that recently. So still in my head. 69 Coronet 500 at a 2400 baud. That's like so slow you can almost hear the individuals ding ding, almost like Morse code or something, Johnny Knoxville had a Mac SE with a 9600 baud modem that was the size of a shoebox. Kevin Thomas fax is old but still reliable. Dan Boyd, I didn't get Ferris Bueller. Ferris Bueller was a little unusual. There's a few things about it that kind of bothered me because Ferris really treated his friend like a jerk. I mean, he got his friend in a bunch of trouble, and then at the end of the movie, kind of like, well, if you're willing to kind of like just go tell your dad who's who, then it's like no, Ferris caused all this problem, all these problems. So there were some issues with it. The Prodigal Stranger, just the facts, ma'am. Facts. Oh, boy. Oh, MHOA. Remember trying to download a large file over 56K. You wait till really late at night, start the download, go to bed, and hope you didn't get disconnected overnight. I mean, I remember, anything like that with respect to trying to download files or simply watching a page load line by line. The kids these days will never know the pain of that. Peter, Lehto is a Finnish surname. Do you speak Finnish? Yes, I'm aware it's a Finnish surname. No, I do not speak Finnish. My parents do. My father is still around. He speaks Finnish. My mother was fluent, and she passed away a couple years ago. And I bumped into a viewer today at a grocery store and met him for the first time. He's like, "Hey, you're Steve Lehto." Got to talking, and he goes, "I'm Finnish," and he told me his last name, and I'm like, "Oh, that is Finnish. I've known someone with that same last name." We compared notes, but no connections. And then his wife, he said, my wife is also Finnish. Called her over, and she had a Finnish last name also, her maiden name. So it was fun. But yeah, Sig226, Cameron was Ferris Bueller's friend who kind of got the short end of the stick on that one. And Johnny Knoxville points out that Ferris was a privileged brat. Yes. Now there were some humorous things in the movie, but there were issues also. Johnny Knoxville drove his family crazy because they could never call. He's using the internet. Yeah, remember that when you when you did dial up, and this is of course before cell phones, and for the most part, um, there was a time when you call somebody, you get a busy signal, which you hadn't gotten because they'd invented call waiting 20 years earlier. Oh, Uncle Dave, how about that meet and greet? If somebody can come up with a reason for us to get together in a place that we can do it at, um, I think I mentioned in the video, if the movie does get released, Coyote versus Acme, I'd be happy to pick a theater and do a meet and greet. Like maybe we'll meet beforehand and we'll all go watch the movie, and then maybe we'll get together afterwards and discuss the movie. Nether Zero, do you have a live stream specific schedule? Yes, I do live streams on Sundays at 1:00 Eastern time. Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? Ember Miss 69. Indiana Jones, which the first movie was great. Second movie, Third movie, way downhill. And it's been like that ever since. Lewis Browning, War Games. Yeah, that was a good movie. I like that movie. It was interesting. It's got some technical issues, but it's a in a roundabout way, it's a preachy movie, but it's interesting. I enjoyed it. Dan Boyd says track day. You mean meet and greet at a track someplace? Yeah, we could do that too. Mexican Spec wants to know what's the color of the Hefty Cup. Today, the Hefty Cup is blue. The password is blue. Standard deviation reminds us that if you had dial up and call waiting, if you forgot to disable the call waiting and someone called, it would hang you up. Padre, hang on a second. Padre, where'd it go? Padre said he had to call his neighbors to tell him to go run next door and have his parents hang up the phone so he could tell them that someone was being born, and it jumped on me. Oh, I hate when that happens. Duncan Campbell checked in with a good morning from Melbourne, Australia. Sorry, I'm late. You're a few minutes late, but don't worry about it. With the time change and all that, I'm talking about the time change going around the planet. So Article 5 says Russians transmitted their first moon images by fax. People intercepted them and showed them before Russia. Interesting. Doesn't surprise me. Why not use the technology you've got, especially if it's not like top secret or something? But hold on. Now I went way back too far the other direction. Oh, Dan Boyd says a meet and greet with a Steve Lehto track day at a track someplace. It's got possibilities. I picture the movie thing being more fun, but that could just be me. Harry Selden says there was some theory that Ferris was Cameron's imaginary friend, but they never explained. Now, that's the kind of thing where somebody comes up with it on the internet, puts it in like a TikTok video, and for like 3 seconds you go, what? But no, it doesn't make any sense because there's all kinds of things that happen that Cameron wouldn't have seen otherwise and wouldn't have known about. But, anyway. Johnny Knoxville says they make reusable solo cups. I've actually got cups that, I could reuse, but I've mentioned this before, is that when this is full of liquid and I put it on the desk, it won't cause the microphone to bounce or shake or pick up noise. And so I'm simply worried about the acoustics, believe it or not. So Harry Seldon says you could have planted a Michigan flag in that Ohio State shirt this morning. You'll recall that when Michigan beat Ohio State this year, and you probably won't recall, but I do. I wore an Ohio State shirt on camera a couple days later, ironically. I knew I was wearing it, and Michigan just beat them. And I thought, this is funny. I'll wear this. Mindbend, a meet and greet where we can see the Viper. You know what's interesting? The Viper does not get as much attention as my Cobra does, but I'd be happy to bring it someplace. I brought it to car shows. In fact, I brought it to an Autopian get together in Troy, Michigan. I also brought my Cobra to another one there. So Johnny Bravo says my cup matches my shirt. I had not realized that, but it is in the same color palette. Janitor Bob says irony can be ironic. What's the liquid of the day? It's almost always green Gatorade, the light green Gatorade. It just it's just evolved that way for no reason in particular. The Canadian robot lady is in the house. Happy spring. Let the birds sing. Let the bells ring. Is that from a song? It sounds a lot like the lyrics to Ma Belle Amie, but I don't think that's exactly right. But if it is, please let me know. Scott Summers, how often do you use a particular hefty cup? I have a stack of these and I use one a week on Sundays at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Johnny Quest, what came first, dial up or the Nigerian Prince? Believe it or not, the Nigerian Prince scam came in the days of the fax machine. I used to get so many faxes from people promising me riches or vacations that I'd won. And you call them, and of course, they say, oh, there's a small fee and a tax and this, that, and the other thing. Next thing you know, you paid $900 to go someplace it would have cost you $8. So Johnny Knoxville points out it's 36 and cloudy in Bad Axe, Michigan. Brian Searzaga, wow, a live Steve Lehto greeting from Chicago. It's not as bad as you think. I've been to Chicago a few times. It's not that far away, although it's a time zone away from me. In fact, I saw a show in Chicago a couple years ago. Now I went out there to see Wicked, and it was a good show, and I had a lot of fun. Also ate at a restaurant. I forgot the name of it, but it was the funniest thing. Just walked up to a restaurant out of the blue, and I asked, I go, how long for a wait on a table? And the guy goes, it's gonna be 45 minutes. And I look at the guy, and the guy's the owner. I go, will it be worth it? And he goes, yes. I said, I'll wait. And it was worth it. It was amazing. It was one of those things where he and I connected at that moment in time. So, oh boy. The Prodigal Strangers is yours, Steve Lehto, the Lemon Law King of Michigan. No, believe it or not, I know a guy who called himself the Lemon Law King. I never gave myself any royal titles, but he's actually a good friend of mine. And he did a live stream a couple days ago, and I logged into his. I'm like, hey, how's it going, man? He's like, yeah. Oh. Kathleen Coffin, good afternoon, Stever. It's 60 and sunny in southwest Missouri. That's not bad. Nether Zero, you play video games? No, I had a Game Boy back in the day, and I had the old school games on it. Tetris and Missile Command, of course. But back in the day, I used to play the upright video games like Defender. Oh, I'm still thinking about buying an upright Defender and putting it in my living room. I think it'd be cool. I don't know if I'd play it as much as I would need to make it worth my while, but I think I would actually play it from time to time. So, Max P, do you prefer Lafayette or American Coney Islands? Down in Detroit, there's these two Coney Islands right next to each other, and they fight, amongst themselves. I've never eaten at either one. I never have. It's not near the courts that I go to. But there are a couple of Coneys There's one on Woodward I used to go to all the time. I forgot what the name of it was, but I'm not a big Coney guy. I don't know. I don't know. I just never was. Devin Bounds enjoying Newton and the Counterfeiter. That's a book I recommended not so long ago. Sig 226. Don't forget about the Sausage King of Chicago. Oh boy. Someone asks, "Did I see the Tetris movie?" Zach, no, I didn't. I can't imagine. It's kind of like they made a movie out of Battleship, and hey, we made a movie out of Twister. I mean, it's such a stretch. I don't even understand it. Yeah, John Zabek, Space Invaders was the original one of those upright quarter video game arcades. They had a Space Invaders in the break area of a building that I was taking classes in a long, long time ago, 1981, and I remember playing Space Invaders. And once you figured it out, it wasn't that much fun. And then, of course, came along Asteroids, and then Defender, and then Joust, and so on. Daniel Kester, how's Mr. Leno these days? Thank you for asking. Jay recently acquired an army tank, and I don't know if he'll do a video about it or not. I actually know some facts about it, but somebody posted video of Jay driving down the street in an army tank. Now, it's not his Ferret. He's got a Ferret armored car. It's not the Ferret. It's a bigger actual army tank. And I do not know all the details on how he got it in the country and all that stuff, or how much it weighs, but I know a little bit about it. But I'm assuming he's going to do a video about it one of these days. So he loves vehicles. He's got some steam powered tractors and stuff. So an army tank is certainly among the things that he likes. So we'll see how that goes. Believe in yourself. What about Tempest? Tempest. That was a freaky game. I played a game of Tempest about 2 years ago. I was in Traverse City in a mall where they had a bunch of video games set up, and they had Tempest. This is the only old school game they had. I played a couple games that brought back some memories. Never quite completely understood what was going on there, but Shaban the Polka King, Marv Herzog or somebody else? Marv Herzog was the polka king of Frankenmuth. I know that. Nice guy. Nice guy. Ebicel Rubber Treads. I believe it has street tracks on it. Yeah, because as you might know, army tanks, especially in the old days, had tracks that would just tear up the pavement. So it also tear up the tracks. So you'd change the tracks for what kind of terrain you're on, and you could get street tracks which were more rubber, and you get the other tracks which were for off-road. So like I've had people say, Steve, you should buy a half track, like a German half track, kind of cool vehicle. I'm like, yeah, but the maintenance on the tracks alone is a fortune. Toad Walker says it's not a World War One tank, is it? No, 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 no. It's a modern tank, like think 70s or 80s. I mean, not modern, but I'm saying it's probably the most modern looking tank you can buy yourself without having to deal with it. Nether Zero, is it legal to own a tank? If it's been demilitarized, yes. Meaning the guns are disabled, and I'm not sure how you disable them, but you got to do something to disable them. And once they've been disabled and so on. Now the question is it legal to drive down the road? How do you plate it and tag it and all that? That's another question altogether. Canadian Robot Lady. It would be fun if you got to play Tetris at work. M3, is the Gordie Howe Bridge open yet? I don't think it's open yet, but it's getting very, very close to looking like it's all the way across. I'm not sure how much more work they got to do on it though. But it's pretty cool, and it's about time. The Ambassador Bridge was getting very run down, shall we say. Emily 35 says you normally can weld the barrel. There's a bunch of things you can do by just removing parts and so on. Because don't forget, most army tanks will have more than one weapon on them. They'll often have 2 or 3. So, Dan Boyd, we're talking about Emergency, the TV show, Rampart. That's on either Cozy TV or Me TV. I always get those two confused in the afternoons on weekdays. And I always catch the end of that if I'm going to watch MASH when MASH comes on. Johnny Knoxville says there's a guy in Kenosha with a huge military collection of tanks and planes on I-94. That's cool. Is it open to the public? I've seen people who've got huge collections of stuff like that. I saw a guy in California who had a huge collection of stuff, and he had some very, very unusual stuff. I think he had a German Panther tank, a Mark V, which are very, very uncommon. Wimpow, greetings from Germany. I don't know what case I was seeing the other day about something a police officer had done. One of the judges was very upset, saying she had never seen something like that. When you've got a judge flummoxed, unless the judge has only been on the bench like 3 minutes. And by the way, I've seen that before. Where somebody graduates from law school, they practice law for like 6 months, run for judge, and they become a judge. And it's like, wait, what? So Robert Torres says the weight of the tank and its tracks with damaged roads. Don't forget though, if you're driving on simply on a road, it's weight distribution. You know how much pressure per square inch. But of course, going over a bridge might be a problem. Talk to guys who drove the King Tigers, for instance. Those things were heavy and wide, and they had issues. So I've read several books, firsthand accounts of guys who were in army tanks in World War II. And the German Tiger tank, for instance, was an amazing tank, but simply getting it to the battlefield was the hard part because they had to usually be brought by train someplace near the battlefield, and then they had to get them off the train. And I remember reading a guy talking about how he was with a group of tanks being brought to the front. As they were unloading the tanks, they got attacked by Allied aircraft. And there's tanks that are on the back of a train car that have to get off the train car and they come under fire. So, yeah, those are the kinds of things that are problematic. Hey, David Dominic Fowler is in the house. Bonjour. He is in France. Last day in France today. Luxembourg tomorrow. See you soon. Absolutely, my friend. They're wrapping up the European leg of this tour. And I'm talking, of course, Aussie Pink Floyd. I've been following them on Facebook. They've got a lot of great photographs and stuff. People are posting all kinds of cool stuff. And then they'll be touring North America shortly. And they're playing at least 2 shows that I know of near me, possibly 3. So looking forward to seeing that if Australian or Aussie Pink Floyd plays anywhere near you and you are a Pink Floyd fan, I urge you to go see the show. I don't endorse many things for free on this show, on any show, but on my channel. But them, I will. And I saw their show. I've seen it now 3 times. And it's an amazing spectacle that they put on. It's fun to watch. It sounds perfect, and it's good. So check them out if you can. Sometimes I listen to myself. My dad was a machine gunner in a tank in World War II. He never once spoke of it. Yeah, it's interesting because it depends what kind of tank he was in. There's usually 4, possibly 5, depending on what kind of tank, what the crew is. And quite often the machine gunner is also the radio operator. And so, yeah, but it's life in a tank, even if you weren't getting shot at, would be a pain in the rear end because you're inside this cramped little thing. You're freezing in the winter. You're boiling in the summer. And if you're in combat, it's all buttoned up and you have limited vision. You're not sure if there could be people behind you sneaking up on you. It's just crazy. Zach, did you see the video of the army of inflatable tanks? Yeah. The Allies, in preparation for the Operation Overlord, wanted to convince the Germans and the Axis that we had more tanks and more people than they thought. And so we had inflatable tanks that we put out places where their reconnaissance planes would see them, but they couldn't send anybody on the ground to come over and look at them. And so these recon planes would go over and take pictures and like, oh my gosh, look at all these tanks. And they also invented an army that was supposed to be commanded by, I believe, Patton, and created tons of radio traffic back and forth so that anybody listening on the radio would go, oh, there's this army here, but there's also this Patton army up here. And in reality, it was a big ruse, as they say. So, David Downey Fowler, cheers as always, Steve. And to you, my friend, Oh. John Zablak, Aussie Gilmore on guitar, question mark. Are you asking who plays guitar? That'd be David Dominic Fowler. Although there's two people on stage playing guitar, but I believe David has seniority. Jay Klein, I'll come up for the Grand Rapids show if we can hang out. Send me a note, my friend. Send me a note. Scott Summers, I'm curious about how long it will take to have the Zilwaukee Bridge being worked on. I'm surprised that the county haven't decided to replace it with a roundabout. Well, it does still have to get over the river. But for those who don't know, in the Tri-Cities area, which is Bay City, Saginaw, Midland, there's this river that comes out, the Saginaw River, and there's a bridge that goes over it. And for years, there was a little lift bridge that had to go up and down every single time a boat went through. And it would drive you crazy. I remember back in the day sitting in the back of my parents' station wagon, just backed up for 50 miles because a boat went through. And so they built a bridge that went up and over the river at such an altitude that anything can get underneath there. It's a pretty tall bridge. And while it was being built, they started discovering problems with it. Like, oh, this isn't the standard. Oh, that's broken. That's not right. That's screwed up. And so it was way behind schedule, way over budget. But I'm guessing that was probably what the early 80s. So it's been a while now. And so MDOT announced this past week that they're shutting down the entire southbound lanes for a few months to do serious maintenance on the bridge. So going north, you can still go over the way you went over. Coming back, you got to go around on 675. But the question is, how long will it take? And how serious are those repairs? So we'll see what happens. Yes, Daniel Kester says they staged them to make the Axis powers think that there was more happening in the north. And it was Patton in the Third Army. And so there was always a question, were they going to land where they did or a little further north up the coast? And those are the two obvious landing spots. And until the Germans knew for certain which one was going to happen, they had to keep some forces in reserve just in case. So Emily 35 says, we have a roundabout that uses two bridges to cross train tracks a couple towns away from me. Really? Okay. Okay. Padre, as long as you don't live in the metro Atlanta area, smog checks are not required in Georgia, and I've never had a VIN check. Yeah, I was talking to somebody recently about that, about how in Michigan we don't have any of those safety inspections, smog inspections, none of that. We used to, and it was county by county. If you lived in certain counties, you had to do the tailpipe emissions thing. But we don't have that. And I know people back east who've got to have vehicles inspected for safety. And I was talking to my dear friend Heather, the Canadian robot lady. She might want to chime in on this because where she lives, they have apparently some kind of safety inspections. So I think it's a bit of a scam myself. Scott Summers, I wouldn't mind taking 675 if it's near downtown Saginaw. Well, 675 is not bad. It's actually not much longer. That's when people are saying like it's not that much longer. Why, So DePaul 31, my uncle was a tank commander in the Pacific during World War II. And you have to imagine that being a tank commander in the Pacific, you didn't get as much time in because all island hopping, right? So Jimmy Joe Fine says Americans are afraid of roundabouts because they have to use their brakes. No. Americans don't like roundabouts because they don't understand what yield means. I went into a roundabout yesterday and I look across the way and there's a guy stopped at the yield sign. And so I came in, passed the first exit, passed him, and then went out. The guy waited the entire time. Why? I don't know. He just didn't understand it. Did not understand the concept. Yeah, Canadian robot lady says they got roundabouts all over the place, including in the middle of nowhere, Alberta. Oh boy. 69 Cornet 500 says Florida is trying to bring back front license plates. Oh, God. We got rid of them in Michigan a long time ago. I don't like the way they look. When I go to a car show and there's a front license plate, I'm like, I just don't like the way they look. Canadian robot lady, yes. Frustrating safety inspections for changing provinces. So you simply move to another province, like, oh, we've got to inspect your car now too. Emily 35. Australia is a mixed bag for vehicle registrations. My state requires a roadworthy inspection once when getting registered, but the next state over requires every year. And I've heard people say things like, "Oh yeah, they told me this is bad," and you take it to a mechanic, and they're like, "That's fine," but what's the discussion regarding statutes and statues? I'm not quite sure. I keep seeing somebody typing the word statue over and over again. A statue with two T's is like, an image of somebody in three dimensions. That's a statue. The Statue of Liberty. Statute, where you put the T at the end of the word statute, okay, is a law or an ordinance or a code is a statute. So, Jay Klein, I've seen people in Cincinnati drive the wrong way on a roundabout. You wouldn't think you need to put in directional arrows, but maybe you need to. Let's be frank. How did you get started on YouTube? I've told the story before, but not in a while. But I worked in radio for years before I became an attorney. I became an attorney. I had a talk show on radio for a while, then that went away. And I started doing podcasts because, of course, I did. Everybody does podcasts. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, you know what you should do? You should record your podcasts on video and put them on YouTube." And I said, "Why? Who would want to watch that?" My friend goes, "Oh, people do that now. They put podcasts on video." And I'm like, "Really?" And he showed me a couple that he liked, and I thought, doesn't look that difficult. So I bought a GoPro camera. I'm not making this up. $100. Clamped it to my desk and sat in front of my computer and recorded a podcast. And then I'd put the audio up on SoundCloud and Podbean and Google Play and iTunes and all that. And then I started putting the videos up on YouTube. And I was editing them with shareware. I kid you not. And I started getting us following. So there you go. So Brian Wiachek says Australian Pink Floyd sold out May 22nd. For which show? May 22nd. I could look it up, but I'm a busy man. Oh boy. Ember Miss 69, when it comes to roundabouts, my thing is use your turn signal unless you're going straight. Um, what I like to see is the people who go into roundabout and don't even turn, they just go straight up and over the center. Oh. Johnny Bravo, all we have here is drunk checks, usually on Friday night. Oh, Canadian robot lady. She's down with using the roundabouts, but she gets nervous with the amount of 18 wheelers. And here's the thing: I know some places where there are roundabouts that many big trucks go through, and they can't fit. I see them. They come in real slowly, and they got to kind of like take a 2-lane roundabout, and they use up the whole thing, and it causes all kinds of backups and problems. Mark G, how's the Viper running? I had it out last week. It's running fine. Absolutely fine. Kelly what happened with the microphone last week? Have no idea. It wasn't the microphone. It had something to do with uploading to the internet. Johnny Knoxville, do not signal around roundabout. I think somebody's joking because obviously pulling a roundabout, unless you're pulling out instantly, but the law does not require it. We've talked about that because the law usually says there's got to be a certain length of time before. So Emily 35 says she may have gotten her car airborne through a roundabout. I've gone through roundabouts very quickly. I think it's funny when I've got somebody in my car, in my Viper or my Cobra, to say, "Watch this." If there's no cars anywhere near the roundabout, just go, "Meow," and you go through it without slowing down. It's fun. It's fun. It puts the passenger up against the far side of the car. So, believe in yourself says traffic jams in Tokyo are eerily silent. Doesn't surprise me, because the people who are honking their horns are usually just doing that out of frustration. They're not actually accomplishing anything. Dave Sanchez, how many times can you 360 in a roundabout? You mean how many times can you go around? I don't think there's a limit. Just as long as you're driving safely and so on. But Kellikaka Coates, you're not supposed to slow down on a roundabout. Well, if the road approaching a roundabout is 45 miles an hour and you try to go through the roundabout at 45 miles an hour, some vehicles wouldn't have fun doing that. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just think it's fun. Who knows? Yeah, Michelle says the problems with roundabouts is the fact that you can't see across them. If you're in an unfamiliar place, you don't see your exit until you're right on top of it. And I've been in my car before, and I've been getting the directions from the Google, and it's telling me, that I'm coming up on a roundabout. It'll say like, take the next right, and they're talking about the first right out of the roundabout. And I've also take the second right, but I've seen it before where there's a roundabout on an exit ramp, and then the same roundabout has an exit onto the entrance ramp. So as you're coming up the hill, you don't even see roundabouts coming. And then all of a sudden you see a sign for a roundabout. And the question is this roundabout capable of putting you around there? Or do you go this way? It can get messy. So, Fatty McButterpants Mama says roundabouts are of the devil. He said are the devil, but I've always said are of the devil. Oh boy. Diana C. Rotaries. I believe that's what they call them some places. Rotaries, like a rotary phone, right? Oh. Curtistics in some places have 3-level roundabouts. I've seen the roundabouts that have roundabouts leading into them. And so there's actually like a roundabout surrounded by roundabouts. And I look at that and go, I can't imagine that anybody knows how that works unless you actually have like a map of it in front of you or something. So yeah, Johnny Knoxville and others have pointed out the vacation movies, the Clark Griswold and the roundabouts. So Mindbend, what about the ultimate roundabout 285 around Atlanta? Is that one of the multiple compound roundabouts that I was talking about? It's a Paul 31 roundabout by Yes. Good song. I only laugh because I did a video about roundabouts over 5 years ago. It was that long ago. And I jokingly said, roundabout, the traffic device, not the questionable song by Yes. And I got so many people upset that I dared make fun of a song by Yes. And I said, but do you like that song? No, no, no. We like their earlier stuff. I mean, most Yes fans don't even like that song. But anyway, Dave Beddoes says that according to Wikipedia, Yes wrote Roundabout in 1971 while touring in a transit van through over 40 roundabouts in Scotland. But the song didn't come out until much later. I mean, I'm assuming they must have recorded it for a while, right? Johnny Knoxville says we've been talking about roundabouts now for 20 minutes. And I don't know, is that good or bad? These days, you never know. But on the other hand, if someone's got a better topic, they can always throw it on the fire. Oh, look at that. Didn't spill a drop. There we go. And ironically, Johnny Knoxville points out it's life imitating art or vice versa because we're stuck in a roundabout talking about roundabouts. Gordon Shumway says roundabout was out in 1971. Really? Don't make me look this up. Okay. Hang on. First thing that popped up was the actual roundabout. I've got to go disambiguation. Hang on. Jeez. For other uses, music, roundabout, Yes song, a song by Yes, released in 71. Okay. Released in 72 in the US. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was thinking of a different song. Okay. Sorry about that. But for me to explain why I had that confusion would take too long, and so we'll stick here. Oh boy. The prodigal stranger, a man, a plan, a canal. Panama. Satan, oscillate my metallic sonatas is also a palindrome. Look it up. Oh. Fatty McButterpants, the only good roundabout is a giant roundabout around a city called a beltway. And I think that's what somebody's getting at with the thing around Atlanta, right? Andrew Kruchowski, hey, Steve. BC65925, Bill Corey says, on the subject of your last video, the North Anvil at the Indiana State Fair blacksmith shop is an Acme. Cool. Is there a Roadrunner underneath it? And what is with the state fairs and giant metal things? The Michigan State Fair for years, which doesn't exist anymore, had a big iron stove out in front of it, like a cast iron stove. And I think it was at one point in time like the biggest stove in the world. But okay. Zach, do you use Chat GPT? No. What effect do you think it will have in the legal community? So far, it's made a bunch of people look stupid. I don't know. It has a long way to go. A friend of mine, as a joke, who does lemon law, asked it for some citations on the lemon law. And he goes, it gave me the 5 nicest cases I've ever seen, but none of them were real. It's made up stuff. Johnny Knoxville, dead or alive, you spin me round, right round, baby, like a record. Right round. I believe that lead singer passed away recently. My Heart Goes Bang. Actually, I had that album. It's a good album. So. Yeah, let's not forget Wacker Drive in Chicago. Alexander Ganaka and Shaban and Johnny Knoxville and others have pointed it out. Oh, Wacker. M3 wasn't the stove in Michigan once near the entrance to Belle Isle. I don't know about that. I know that it was at the entrance to the state fairgrounds at 8 Mile, which got sold and turned into a shopping center. And they tried to revive a state fair of some sort up in Novi, but it just flopped. But it's a great example. You know, Michigan had, I believe at one point in time, the longest running state fair in the nation. And it was huge. And, you know, went there a few times. And then they ran into financial trouble and just scrapped it. And the land, some developers wanted it and bought it and put in a bunch of big shopping center type stuff there. And it's kind of sad to go by it now, but I believe the stove is still there. I could be wrong, but I think I saw it there recently. Johnny and I drove right by there when Johnny was in town. So I don't know, Johnny, if you remember seeing that. I think I pointed to that's where the state fair used to be a long time ago. So long time ago. Rocinante, best album ever, obviously, is 2112. That's Rocinante's vote for best album ever, ever. Oh boy, Kelakakis is rock and roll is a communist plot. They used to say, at least some used to say that. Yeah, of course, and it was an attempt to undermine the youth of America. You see, you get all these kids, and they're out there just doing this, and they're not thinking. Like, let me guess, Lawrence Welk is thinking real hard, right? Oh, Canadian Robot Lady, when you get to be our age, a decade ago is recent. Pretty much. I had somebody remind me of something that did not happen that long ago, and I realized it was 12 years ago. And I'm like, you know, you discover there's certain things, like in my practice as an attorney, if it happened 15 years ago, it's a while ago. But I don't know. It's so hard to say. Shaft says if you buy or lease a vehicle under the employee discount program, you waive your lemon law right. It depends on what state you're in, and you're not waiving it entirely. You're waiving your right to try it as a case. You're usually saying that you'll arbitrate in exchange for it. In Michigan, for instance, in many states, you cannot waive it outright. You absolutely cannot. A court would not uphold that. Jim Naden says Alexandria, Indiana has the world's largest ball of paint. I think I saw something about that recently. Did that go around on like the TikTok or something? Because it weighs so much. Because it's just basically just they keep putting coats of paint on it. Fat Blue, Heather, will you paint my truck with a roller? Oh boy, Mexican Spec will be right back. Okay, we'll wait quietly. Dan Boyd says, "Don't forget that Lawrence Welk once performed One Toke Over the Line, the Brewer and Shipley song." Oh boy. Sometimes I listen to myself says life is like a roll of toilet paper. I think to say life is a rock, and the radio rolled me, but that's different. Blah blah blah. If I leave money in a will to someone, do they have to pay inheritance tax or state estate tax? I can't give you an answer on that because it depends wildly on the state. But many states have caps below which you don't have to pay taxes on it. So that's why a lot of people freaking out about estate taxes are actually freaking out about something that's probably not going to affect them that much. Tulipomi, greetings from southern Finland. Greetings. Thank you for checking. I appreciate that. I was listening to some music by my favorite musician from Finland, Lori Taka. And I know I'm mispronouncing his name, but it's a guy named Lori Taka, Tahka. And I think there's an umlaut or two in there. Love that guy. Absolutely love that guy. Oh, Jimmy Define, Love is Like a Rock, Donnie Iris. Yeah. And also, Do You Compute? Don't forget his other song. Bill Corey, did you ever hear Pat Boone's version of Smoke on the Water? I'm not sure. I know that he did a whole bunch of those kind of songs later on, but I was never a big fan. I disliked him for what he did earlier in his career, where he's ripped off black artists and put out safe versions of their music. Like Blueberry Hill. I found my thrill. Yeah, Tulip Homie says it's Lori Taka, and there's umlauts over both A's. I know it's actually a different letter. I understand that. Lion Zookeeper says Fordite. Fordite is the chunks of layered paint reclaimed from paint booths at Ford plants, and it looks like it's a rock. It looks like rock. That's what I've seen it before. It's pretty cool. Jumped on me again. Bernadine Sackinger says Pat Boone also did Gangster's Paradise. Saying Pat Boone ripped off black artists is like saying Ray Charles ripped off Kate Smith. I don't know what you are attempting to say there. I'm talking about the fact that Pat Boone in the 50s would hear a song by Fats Domino and go in the studio and record a white version of it for white radio stations. Now, did Ray Charles ever cover Kate Smith songs in an attempt to rip her off? I'm curious. Tulip Homie says, if you spell the word at, you spell the at the same way that we spell at. No, I understand that. And the other one's right? But I'm just saying I can't do the pronunciations well enough to where I don't want to embarrass myself. Oh, well, yeah. And can you tell us how Canadian Robot Lady wants you to tell us, am I pronouncing Taka correctly? Taka. Because I suspect that I need to hit the H a little more. It's not me 07. What did I miss? Oh, boy. Not much. Diana Cease inheritance tax used to kick in about $2 million. I think they've raised it. I think it's $5 million now. But Dan Boyd's Ray Charles is actually a little country. I remember working at a radio station. I'm pretty sure we played a couple Ray Charles songs. So Tulip Homie says, you hit the H before the A. You sound like you are spelling it as, well, that would be Thaka for us, but yeah, see, I can't hit the H, Thaka, before the K. We don't do that. D2254, thumbs up, y'all. MHOA, internal roundabout service. Emily 35, have you heard about the Casey City Council in Australia imposing permits for unregistered vehicles and private property? They did include permits for basic servicing, but then they backtracked. Yeah, I saw the story. Several people sent it to me. I decided not to do a story on it, only because we've had similar things happen here in America, including where they'll just say if you've got an unregistered vehicle on your property, you can't be storing a vehicle like that. It depends if it's out front of your house, out back of your house, unless it's inside a garage or something. But that's always one of those things. So sometimes I listen to myself as while your dad is still living, go through old photographs and find out who people are. My parents had boxes of old photos and no one knew who anyone was. Here's the thing. My mother passed away about 3 years ago now. And she, probably about 10 years preceding that, did this gigantic project of putting all of her photographs in a set of albums like this big. It takes up a shelf in the living room. and she's labeled them all. They're all labeled. And the funny part was I was going through them and I found photographs of me. I'm like, wait, I don't think I've ever seen that one before. M3 grew up in Detroit, no tolerance for country music. During what time frame? There was W4 country, there was Young Country, there's WCXI with Dino Day. They had country music. They didn't have top 40 for the longest time, but they did country. But yeah, yeah. So it's not me says yes. Quiz your parents as soon as you can on their life, people they know, etc. Sadly, I didn't get that done. Um, it's interesting because I agree with you 100%. I now find myself paying very very close attention, especially my father when he tells me stories, and I will make sure that I listen and understand them. And I've learned some things in the last couple of years that I did not know, primarily about his mother, for instance. And I never sat down and asked him questions about it, but when he told me some stories, now I feel I can go back and ask him some follow ups and so on. So it's absolutely fascinating. Duncan Campbell, did you see a story about the woman collecting toes? Yes, I did. There is so much weird stuff out there. I skimmed that one and I'm like, it's just weird, weird. So it's amazing what's going on out there. Um, Alexander Ganaka, country is the only genre I hate. That and John Mayer. Country music is I hate to be critical of any music because I tell people the music I like and they go, well, that sucks. Well, you're entitled to your opinion. But a lot of modern country sounds like a lot of other modern country, if you know what I mean. And you can go on YouTube and find people who've taken 10 different songs and just spliced them together, and you can't tell where they begin or end. And it's because they're all about the same thing. They're all in the same key. They're all at the same tempo. It's all about going down to the river with my best girl in the pickup truck and my dog, and we're drinking under the moonlight. I mean, how many times can you do that? But apparently it works. People like that. So I'm not going to criticize it, but I'm not going to buy it either. Oh, boy. MH08 or country before 1980. I mean, like, I love Willie Nelson. I think Willie Nelson's great, but Willie Nelson does not get played on modern radio stations playing country music. But Willie Nelson's a treasure. Hank Williams for Running Away, likewise. Bernadine Sackinger says modern country sounds like pop music. I guess with modern pop, yes. I look at the top 10 charts, with like Rick Beato often talks about these songs and musicians in the top 10. It's kind of like, but he's kinder than I would be. I'd be like, what the hell is this? Oh, Canadian Robot Lady likes New Country. No one cares as long as you don't start jamming it down their throats, you know? Standard deviation. How do you feel about Mongolian throat singing? I am not, you're to think I'm making this up. I am not making this up. I was listening to a song this morning. In fact, I think I can probably click that button and I got the sound turned off, so that'll be fine. Hang on. And the band is called Harenga, and the song is called Tolan Hul, and it has some of that Mongolian folk music in it. And in this version I was watching, they're doing a collaboration with Henge, which is another Mongolian group. But Harenga is the old school. They're the ones who first performed Talanhul. And I was listening to it just yesterday and this morning, and I sent a link to my friend going, check this out. Some Mongolian music I've been listening to lately. Oh, Mexican spec. I'm back. Did I miss any wisdom? Probably not. Yeah, Carrie Stoltz says, try the Who, H-U, the Who, from Mongolian folk with a rock twist. I wonder if the Who know the people from Haringa. I bet they do. Fatty McButterpants, Big Country in a Big Country. One of those rare bands that had a song with the same title as the band name, which I like to remind people was a band called Living in a Box. They had a song called Living in a Box. And the joke is, where are they today? Living in a box. And it's funny because it's true. Zach reminds us that Dolly Parton's husband recently passed. And that's true. I saw it in the news. And what's amazing about that is they apparently had a fabulous relationship. And he was low key, happy to be behind the scenes, in the shadows, the wind beneath her wings, perhaps. But they till death did they part. And Dolly Parton is one of those people where I understand she's a country singer. Um, she just seems like a genuinely nice person. You know, I just get the impression she's a nice person, whether you like her music or not. I've never bought a Dolly Parton record. I played some of her music when I worked at a country radio station, but she just seems like a nice person. Dustin Sparks says some money for the till. Enjoy your perspectives on these stories. My wife notices that my Michigan accent comes out when I watch. So I'll raise a pop for the channel currently in Baltimore. I appreciate that. You know what's funny is people talk about the Midwestern accent or even a Michigan accent. And there's certain words and certain vowels that we say differently. Obviously, we refer to soda as pop. That's a big one. But how we say some of the vowels, like the word concrete, they'll say we overemphasize the concrete. But we all talk like this, so it blends in, right? So, For Running Away reminds us of Talk Talk. They, of course, had a song called Talk Talk. Great song, great band. I've seen them live several times. They warmed up for Elvis Costello at Meadowbrook Hall in about 1983 or 84. I forgot the exact year. But Talk Talk's a pretty cool band, one of those new wave bands, heavy on the keyboards. At one point in time, they did not have a guitar player because they didn't need one, which is not unheard of. But they had several big hits later, and I think they may have even gained a guitar player later on. But Talk Talk, a great band. I've always loved them. So, Terry G, love your content. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Something Wong says, Talk Talk or Hood. Good. Johnny Knoxville, Dolly Parton was known for her front porch. Well, no, I mean she was, but number one, she was always good natured about it. But number two, she had talent. She still has talent, and so that's what's so funny is that there's different ways you can play it off if people are calling attention to something you over and over and over and over again. And you can imagine where some artists would be like, "Stop talking about that already. Listen to my music." She was never like that. And I mean, she was a Johnny Carson punchline for the longest time because anytime they needed to crack a joke about a woman's body parts, it was Dolly Parton. She became shorthand for that. But she was so good natured about it. But she's a fabulous singer. So hot idea. Just don't forget about Bad Company. Had a song called Bad Company. And Dan Boyd's Talk Talk. They had a song, the album title, and the band name. Axis of Awesome. Emily 35 reminds us about the four chords. I believe they're the first to do that. I've seen several variations on that. They point out that the four chords appear in so many different songs, and they just do a whole medley of all the songs that you can crank out with the exact same four chords. Oh, boy. Ryan, didn't the singer die a few years ago? You're referring to Mark Hollis of Talk Talk? That's possible. Dolly is a phenomenal songwriter. Heather reminds us, Canadian robot lady. She wrote "I'll Always Love You," which of course has gone on to sell millions of copies by other people. And yeah, yeah. So she's still out there, and she's doing pretty well. Ember Miss 69 says Dolly Parton actually dropped a rock album a few years ago. She's actually been on stage with some rock legends like Rob Halford of Judas Priest. I don't know that I knew that. Doesn't surprise me though. Zach says is a good interview with Dolly Parton and Barbara Walters. She definitely outclassed Barbara. Wouldn't surprise me. So Alexander Ganaka, I also hate with a passion Bono. Bono's one of those people. He's polarizing, shall we say. I like U2's music. I like a lot of their music. But Bono has gotten a little bit too large in the head for his own good. He thinks that he's. I mean, the same can be said of Sting, right? There, has pissed off almost my entire audience. But U2 put out some very good music. Sunday Bloody Sunday live version, unbelievable. But yeah, I don't know if I need a rock singer lecturing me on how to live. So. Standard deviation, didn't Bob Dylan play with the band? Most people would say the band played with Bob Dylan. I've actually read books on this, including Robbie Robertson's autobiography, Testimony. Very, very good book, by the way. And the guys who were in the band had been jamming together and playing together for a long time with like Ronnie Hawkins. And then when Bob Dylan decided to go electric, he asked them to tour with him. And he did a tour where it was half and half. He'd come out and do an acoustic set, then he'd do an electric set, or vice versa. I don't even know if it mattered. And what's funny is people would buy tickets to go see Bob Dylan. And during the acoustic set, they'd applaud. And during the electric set, they'd throw stuff. And Robbie Robertson goes, we'd come out there, and everybody knows this is going to happen. And they're throwing stuff on stage, like bottles and stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy. But Bob Dylan was good friends with those guys. They hung out in Woodstock. In fact, the guys in the band had a house, Big Pink, in Woodstock. And that's where they recorded a lot of music with Bob Dylan. The Basement Tapes, for instance. There's a song out there. You can find it on the internet, on YouTube. One Too Many Mornings by Bob Dylan. He performed it live a few times. I'm not too crazy about his version, but find the version from the Basement Tapes where Richard Manuel of the band sings 2 verses of it. And it's stellar. It's stellar. And that's the one thing about Bob Dylan. I know there's people out there who actually like Bob Dylan's singing style. To me, he's singing, and I understand he's singing, but he's not emphasizing the melody the way he could. So many of his songs done by other people that I like so much better. I understand that to write a song, you deserve all the credit in the world. But when you write a song like All Along the Watchtower, and then Jimi Hendrix does what he did with it, you're like, okay, you got to give that guy credit for seeing what you did and turning it into that. So, but I have a lot of respect for Bob Dylan as well. Sig226 says, entertain us, don't preach to us. I thought you were talking about me for a second. You may have been, but I hope you're talking about Bono. Jimmy Joe Fine, Richard Manuel was a soulful singer. He could make you cry. I recently watched the Last Waltz, which was the last live performance of the band when the band broke up. And Richard Manuel was one of the singers. And that's the amazing thing about the band is that Robbie Robertson later went solo and he sang. He was the 4th best singer in the band because it was Levon Helm, Richard Manuel, Rick Danko. Those 3 guys sang. And Richard Manuel had the greatest voice for deep emotions. I believe he sang Whispering Pines. And then he died of a drug overdose, sadly. So, Johnny Knoxville was born after the Last Supper and before the wheel. You mean before the invention of the wheel? Oh. Sam as I am said, Dylan said of All Along the Watchtower, I wrote it, but Hendrix owns it. Mexican Spec. Has anybody seen the Bob Dylan movie? I have not. I really need to get a cough button. Got a little tickle in my throat, and this is not working. Jimmy Joe Fine. Levon was an equally great singer, but different. Levon was special. Levon had an amazing voice, and what's unusual, of course, he's a drummer. And Dave Grohl once said, "If you're a drummer, you shouldn't be singing unless your name is Levon." Carrie Stoltz likes the Simon and Garfunkel cover "Sound of Silence," but done by Disturbed. And of course, that's a classic. Happy says, "I just sent you an email. My name is James." Okay. Prince Albert's. You know who was shocked to learn that they could sing? Jim Neighbors. Wait, Jim Neighbors? Anybody who watches the Indy 500 know about Jim Neighbors singing, because I believe isn't what's the song, like "Back Home in Indiana" or "My Sweet Home Indiana," "Sweet Home Indiana." God bless Indiana. No, there was some song he would sing before the Indianapolis 500, and it was a big deal. And the guy's got one of those voices that, forget the golly, he had a really deep voice, normally a speaking voice. Sig 226 says Levon Helm played Loretta Lynn's daughter. Excuse me, Loretta Lynn's father in The Coal Miner's Daughter. I seem to recall that he did do some acting. Very unusual, interesting looking guy, and obviously very talented. Cody Prime, Behind Blue Eyes, covered by Limp Bizkit. I'm really not sure. I've never quite gotten the name Limp Bizkit, and I don't care if they have an explanation. It doesn't work. But it doesn't surprise me. Jim Naden, yeah, Back Home Again in Indiana. And Todd Projects called that out also. Sweet Home Indiana. But I remember for years, like that, he would be out of the public eye for the entire year, and then boom, he'd pop up at Indianapolis. Jay Klein, Back Home in Indiana. Blah blah. Did not Peter Max do some album covers that are highly collectible today? I'm not sure. I've always liked Peter Max's work, but I'm not sure about any album covers. Although there's freaks out there will be like, "Oh, I want the album cover, but it's got to be the one with the trademark delete symbol down here." So, some literal, huh? So, Dave Bettles, Rolf Harris covered "Stairway to Heaven." Is that the Timey Kangaroo down, mate? Oh boy. Dan Boyd, I saw Eddie Money in 1982. He played Pine Knob every year in Michigan, but I never saw him. Happy says I had free tickets for REO Speedwagon. I couldn't give them away. When I got to Eddie Money was just leaving. He was saying good night. I've mentioned before I saw REO Speedwagon at Pine Knob in the summer of 1980. And I wasn't planning on going, but a friend of mine, probably similar to this, called me up and said, "Hey, want to go see REO Speedwagon tonight?" I'm like, "Sure." And so we drove out to Pine Knob, and it was supposed to be John Cougar. John Cougar Mellencamp was supposed to warm up for him. And he had dropped out for some reason. So when we pulled in, the marquee said, "REO Speedwagon, special guest, John Cougar." We go in there, And nothing happened for the longest time. Then finally walks out and goes, John Cougar has canceled, so REO Speedwagon will simply come on early. People started throwing stuff at the band, and it wasn't their fault, but we had decent seats too. And I remember some guy took a big, like, imagine the biggest drink you can get at a movie theater and drain all the liquid out of it, but leave the ice in it, and threw it, and it hit Kevin Cronin like in the side of the head or something. And he was like beside himself with anger, but he didn't see who threw it. Riding the storm out, baby. Johnny Knoxville says drummers who sang Kelly Keagy of Night Ranger. I was not aware of that. Fatty McButterpants, Johnny Cougar was busy whining. Well, what probably happened was I Need a Lover became a gigantic radio airplay song. And I think he said, why am I warming up for these guys? I should be headlining someplace. Now, REO Speedwagon had a couple gigantic albums right around there. So Happy says I had 10 tickets. Even the radio station in the Patriots Stadium parking lot didn't want them. Shaban says it's so gross when people throw stuff. Yeah, no, I'm only laughing because the people are throwing stuff because they're upset at John Cougar not being there. So you're throwing something at Kevin Cronin. It's like, what's he gonna do? Save the cup and throw it at John Cougar when he sees him? You know, it's like just how people think is so distorted. Oh, Sig 226 says don't forget about Karen Carpenter was a drummer who sang. That's which is even crazier because you forget there's even drums in Carpenter's songs. I love the Carpenters. I'm not making fun of them. I love the Carpenters. Their version of Superstar is so good. John Zablak, I saw Leon Redbone in Utica, New York. I saw him on Saturday Night Live like a lot of people did. And of course, there's a band called Redbone, which had nothing to do with Leon Redbone. And Leon Redbone is simply a guy who sang, but in a very unusual style. It's hard to describe him. He did a version of Ain't Misbehavin'. May have been what he did on Saturday Night Live. I'm not sure. For Running Away, says Steve, I'm serious. You have odd sense of humor. Is that good or bad? I don't know. Johnny Z. Fradley says Pat Benatar covered I Need a Lover. Yeah, she did. She did not do a very good job of it. I didn't care for her version of it. Covers are often just lazy things people do when they need to put something out. And so you got to really bring something to it. And I've seen people cover songs and I'm like, why'd they do that? Oh, they wanted to put something out. Yeah, Johnny Knoxville, I'm talking about drummers who lead sang full time. Yes, of course. I mean, a lot of drummers will sing backup. I knew a guy who had a band once, and they gave the drummer a microphone. They just turned it down. Nobody could hear him. Oh, Silver Mountain missed the Breakfast in America tour for Supertramp. That there was a time when Breakfast in America, You Can Tune a Piano, Frampton Live. There's a bunch of these albums that came out right around then, and then just album rock stations were just playing this stuff. And Fleetwood Mac Rumors. There's about 20 of these albums that came out in like a 2 or 3 year period where it's just like every single track got played on the radio. It was crazy. Padre says the only Kiss song sung by the drummer Peter Criss was Beth, which is a great song. Of course, that they were one of the earlier bands to realize that even a heavy metal band could put out a slow ballad from time to time. And I read someplace that the song was inspired by one of the band members' girlfriends kept calling, "When are you guys coming home? When will you be done practicing?" I love that song. So, David, my first concert was REO Speedwagon and Foreigner at Michigan. Was it MSU, Michigan State University? My older sister wanted to go. My parents made her take me as a chaperone. Robert Torres is Phil Collins. Yeah, it was interesting thing about Phil Collins is he had a solo career and he also was with Genesis for a while. And Peter Gabriel was also in Genesis at one point in time. But I hate to say this, I'm not a big Phil Collins fan. I'm not going to besmirch him, but I just never was. And I've mentioned this before that Spotify, I was on Spotify listening to music and a Phil Collins song comes on. So I skip it or whatever you do to tell it I don't like Phil Collins. Don't give me any Phil Collins songs. And a Peter Gabriel song comes on and I give it the thumbs up. I love this song. It immediately throws another Phil Collins song at me. And for some odd reason, they can't get it in their heads or in their algorithms that you can like Peter Gabriel and not like Phil Collins. And it always bothers me. I've had people say, well, if you like Peter Gabriel, you must like Phil Collins. No, I don't. Don't know why. I just don't. Johnny Knoxville, Stuart Copeland is saying part time. Yeah, I don't think anybody would consider him to be the singer of the Police. And I think if Sting heard you say that, he'd probably punch you, then go punch Stuart Copeland. Glenn Combs, I saw Jewel live in Orlando twice. Quite impressed both times. She has a fantastic stage presence. I've heard good things about her. I've never seen her perform except maybe on TV or YouTube or something. I know she's got an interesting backstory where apparently she was kind of broke, maybe living out of her car at one point or another. And to have made it where she did is pretty impressive. So, Padres, anyone heard of a band from the late 70s or 80s named Eli? No. Michelle, what about Don Henley? Yeah. I'm not saying they don't exist. They're just less common. Fatty Butterpants says Leon Redbone was born in Cyprus. I knew he'd been born someplace far away. Johnny Knoxville, I hated the Police. I assume you mean the band. And I, you know, they've got some music I really, really like, and they got some songs I can't stand. And some of it's just overplayed, you know. The number of times I heard da do 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 da 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 played on the radio made me want to like damage the radio. So Art S is Phil Collins is okay, but Peter Gabriel is a much better lead. Yeah, I really like. I mean, I know that some people think the voices are similar. They go, yeah, they have similar qualities to their voices, but to me, I hear a distinction, a difference, and I don't know what it is. Zach did not know that Peter Gabriel was in Genesis. Yeah, that's a long time ago, my friend. Oh. Dave Sanchez, the only real part of Pat Benatar's name is Patricia. All I know is she got called Pat Rent a Car and Pat Bent Guitar. So Zach, Jewel went to school in Michigan. Did she really? I never heard that. I thought it was Alaska. Sumton Wong says every band has good and bad songs, including the Beatles. To some extent, I would agree with that. Absolutely. If you said, Steve, there's this band, can you name one song? I can often name one. One. And by the way, my favorite song by the Beatles, Across the Universe. I kid you not. They've got a lot of songs that are good. I understand that. I worked at oldies stations where we played 50 of their songs, but that's my favorite song by them. Shaban, I think someone told me that once, but I forgot. Carrie Stoltz, Peter Gabriel seems more upbeat and fun vocally. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can. I mean, I know. Like when I think of Peter Gabriel, I think of it as a little more thoughtful music than Phil Collins. I don't know why. It's just how it strikes me. CJ Turner, I used to dislike Joe Cocker, but was blown away by his version of Unchain My Heart. Joe Cocker, also don't forget that John Belushi used to do a Joe Cocker imitation on Saturday Night Live, which was hilarious. And then one time, John Belushi was doing his imitation of Joe Cocker, and Joe Cocker came out and joined him. You gotta absolutely respect. Absolutely respect. So, Robert Torrey, best police tune Mother. That one does not strike a chord with me. My favorite by them is Driven to Tears. It's got the greatest guitar solo of all time. Daniel Kester, the one Beatles song I actually hated was Hey Jude. Yeah, I was never a big fan, but you know, what are you gonna do? Dan Fissel, do you ever watch any lawyers on YouTube? I try not to, believe it or not. I don't ever want to even subconsciously imitate them. Uh, I'm friends with a couple, and we exchange stuff, but I don't watch a lot of videos of other people doing what I do. I spend a lot of time on YouTube watching police chase videos or arrest videos. There's body cam channels that show nothing but body cam of people being arrested, which is just endlessly entertaining. And it's funny the number of times people are literally in handcuffs being taken away, and they're like, "Are you kidding me?" I want a cop one time to go, "Yes, I'm kidding you." Oh, no, just no, I'm not. Oh boy. Twilight Childs is back when SNL was funny. Yeah, I'm so old. I remember when SNL was funny. I've said that to people. Although there's a few bright spots. The Nate Bargatze, how do you pronounce his last name? His skits where he's George Washington. Those are funny. Andrew Kruchowski, have you ever recited the Code Red speech from A Few Good Men? No, but I did say the other day I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain something. Retired Butcher Boy, my favorite all-time band, Leonard Skinner. Johnny Knoxville, Code Blue Cam. Yeah, Lewis Browning, lock-picking lawyer. He's obviously not doing lawyer stuff, but it's just funny that he is a lawyer. I've corresponded with him. The guy that's I tell people, I go, that's the guy who shows you why YouTube exists. Because who'd have thought that you could watch a video shot from somebody's viewpoint as they look at their own hands as they take a lock apart and show you how a lock works and then how to pick it. And it's absolutely fascinating. The guy's got millions of subscribers. It's endlessly entertaining. And I know people who have no interest in technical or mechanical things who watch it go, but I love this guy. It's so hard to describe, but it works so well. G Keyman 565 later. Have a great day. Thank you for hanging around, my friend. Johnny Knoxville, I'm caught up in Nancy Grace and true crime videos. True crime, yes. Nancy Grace, I just, she's just a little bit too hysterical for me. I just remember when she was covering the Casey Anthony trial out of Florida, and she got it so horribly wrong. I remember seeing her, and she's like basically saying she'd bet anybody anything that there's going to be a conviction in like 3 minutes, and not guilty. And then she went, spent weeks trying to explain away how she got it so wrong. Keeger 4 official, did your radio waves ever reach as far as the corners of M52 and M57? I'm not sure where that corner is. Alexander Ganaka, no area beats La Crosse, Wisconsin, when a police body cam starts. I've seen a lot of good stuff out of Wisconsin. I've seen a lot of good stuff. There's also a lot of good car chases out of, I think it's Alabama. Alabama, oh my gosh. High speed chases out on country roads. And then, of course, there's a lot of good stuff in Florida. Crazy people on vacation getting hammered drunk and literally like almost incapable of standing up and a cop walks in like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Ugh, this is not going to end well." Oh, Arkansas? Is it Arkansas? It's got the high speed chases. I think I've seen them too. Um, yeah, Arkansas Straight Troopers, the ASP down the corner. Carrie Stoltz rather watch Will and Grace instead of Nancy Grace. Oh, Alexander Ganaka, Arkansas has no limit on pit maneuvers. I saw 131 pit with a driver, no seatbelt. I've seen some pits where I'm like, I'm not even sure I agree with that. Like where they'll pit somebody and I don't have a problem if the driver gets injured, but I'm always worried about the car being pitted towards the center of the road to where it could cross an oncoming traffic or go over a divider or but yeah, I've seen a bunch of those that were pyrotechnic in nature. John Nathan Shoppers are M52 and M57 neighboring galaxies. I'm thinking they're country roads. I'm thinking. Michelle says Colin Jost and Michael Shea are great. I agree too. I agree too. And I don't know how much of that they write themselves or how much is written for them, but they are my favorite news people going all the way back to the beginning. I can't think of anybody other than Norm Macdonald, but Norm was different. Norm was those are clearly his jokes. So Dave Sanchez, I wanted to be a DJ so bad I was doing radio spots for free. Never happened. Well, what time frame are you talking about? Because nowadays it's you can get into radio, but you won't make any money. You'll make minimum wage, and you'll be it's tough. I'm not saying minimum wage is a bad job, but I'm just saying I know people in major markets making minimum wage. In the old days, they'd be making real money for that. So Johnny Knoxville, they should allow pit maneuvers in NASCAR. That would be funny to turn it into more of a death race kind of thing where you're allowed to ram cars on purpose. Probably go a little slower, but it becomes an endurance race, not just an actual race. Because if you're allowed to take cars out and so on, we'll have to think about that. I can see it being another class of racing. So Art S says Peter Gabriel also made the best music videos, especially Sledgehammer. Yeah, I some of his later stuff, to me, I'm not as crazy about, but I know that his live shows are stunning. I've seen him live a couple times, and you go on YouTube and find video of him in concert, and the stage performances are just absolutely amazing. Johnny Knoxville says they do allow pit maneuvers in NASCAR. Well, not of the sort that we're talking about here. I'm talking about like where you could actually, in other words, you're not penalized for dinging another car, and we don't stop when somebody dings another car. Okay, the race just keeps going, and if a car gets stuck out there, we throw a yellow flag just to drag it off the course, and just keep it going, keep it going. Oh boy. Canadian Robot Lady says definitely be prepared to have 2 or 3 side jobs if radio is your primary job. And she would know. Canadian Robot Lady worked in radio longer than I did. We started around the same time, but she stayed in radio, worked in a whole bunch of big markets and whatnot. But she got to witness what I heard about, and that is how radio changed over the years to where a lot of radio stations now pipe in their stuff from other cities, syndicated programming. There are some radio stations I know of where there's no humans in the building, like literally nobody in the building at all. Everything's being run remotely and satellites and internet, and it's the opposite of local. So Standard deviation. Have you ever watched skid plate racing? Yes. A lot of sparks. Dan Boyd says Dennis Miller was good too. I didn't really care for him as much on Saturday Night Live. I liked him better when he did Monday Night Football. And on Tuesday mornings, they'd actually run articles explaining the words he used. Oh boy. Kaz Wiz says, I've been tickled pink. You've worn the Verner's shirt I sent at least 5 times. Thank you for noticing. I wore it just a couple days ago, didn't I? Like a week ago, maybe. Verner's, of course, is a Detroit soda. It's a ginger ale, but it's Verner's. I mean, it's in Detroit. People would refer to ginger ale as Verner's, whether or not it is the same way some people would just refer to soda as Coke. It's a very, very distinctive thing here. So, Fatty Butterpants says Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush duet was fantastic. I like Kate Bush too. Old Paint says M52 and M57 intersect near Chesaning. Well, I did work at a radio station called WKNX in 1983 that would have reached Chesaning, but the Bad X station would not have. Johnny Knoxville says, I hear there's an Art Bell documentary on the way. Oh, that'd be cool. Lewis Browning says, Canadian Robot Lady sounds like Laura Steele. Zach, is the guy on the Verner's bottle a leprechaun? I don't know. I've often wondered about that. I don't know what the story is. It looks like a leprechaun or a troll. I'm not sure, though. All I know is that's been their logo for the longest time. I don't even know if the guy's got a name. Scott Summers says Verner's is medicine. Many people in Michigan do swear by it as something for an upset stomach or like even you have like the flu or something, and you're having a hard time eating anything. That's something you do for that. What of says, was there some sort of technical glitch last week or 2 weeks ago? It was last week. And we don't know what it was because I've changed nothing, and here we are. Bob Blah Blah says, I heard Canada Dry Ginger Ale is changing their name to America Drive Ginger Ale. Yeah. We'll see about that. Bernadine Sackinger says Trader Joe's ginger ale is good. Never had it. Never had it. Carrie Stoltz, Phil Hartman was amazing. Yeah, Phil Hartman was an immense talent. He was on news radio, and I was a little surprised at how they played him on news radio, that he didn't do the voices and stuff. But I think he was trying really hard to become more of an actor and less of a comedian. But he was a wizard with voices. It was amazing the stuff that he could do, and such a tragic story as to what happened to him. But he was good on Saturday Night Live as well. Art S, new radio may be robots, but college radio hasn't changed since the 90s, including the sound. That might be true. And if it's true, in typical fashion, colleges are showing kids something that's not true about the real world. I knew people who worked at the radio station, Oakland University, when I was a student there. And I'd already worked in professional radio at 2 different radio stations. And I'd stop by the radio station and watch what they're doing. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad. But, what are you going to do? Oh, Kalakaku says, yeah, the unfrozen caveman lawyer. Unfrozen caveman lawyer is without question the funniest thing ever done regarding attorneys. Okay? There's nothing funnier out there than unfrozen caveman lawyer. I don't understand your automobiles or your television sets But I do understand this. My client is entitled to $2.9 million in punitive damages. Unfrozen caveman lawyer. Dan Boyd says Rogan was on news radio. Must have been after Phil. I believe he was on the entire time. He was like the handyman or the technician or whatever. Art S points out that he was on there as well. Zach, you say soda or pop? I say pop. I'm from Michigan. I have to correct myself and go, oh, it's soda for you people. So Johnny Knoxville, does caveman lawyer mimic lawyers who get off the phone quickly? Well, remember a couple of times he's in court and he's talking the big cell phone, the one. Hang on, Your Honor. I'm sorry. Oh, Johnny Z. Fradley, handle on the law. I've listened to it a little bit. I don't think it's actually on the radio near where I live, but I'm traveling. I pick up on it once in a while on the weekends. And that guy's been around a long time, and he's very, very successful at what he does. Hot ideas, as we call it, pop or soda pop. Well, it was originally called soda pop, and then the question becomes, which half do you keep if you shorten it? And in the Midwest, we kept the pop. In other places, they kept the soda. Al Roberts, your modern world confuses and frightens me. I don't understand where the voices come from in this thing. All I know is my client's entitled to $2.9 million in actual damages and 3.4 in punitive damages. Thank you, Your Honor. Oh. So Caswiz says the classic Verner's logo is Woody the Gnome. Woody the Gnome. And is that going back to like that is cured in like a wooden cask or something, or some kind of like stump water or something? So Dave Sanchez says Phil Hartman did artwork on Poco and America albums. I don't know if I knew that or not. It's kind of a odd little thing. Boomer, make everyone happy. Call it a fountain drink. Don't forget, there was a time if you wanted a Coke, you had to go to Woolworths and go up to the counter and ask for a fountain drink. So yeah, Kelikakis is when Phil Hartman did the Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer, he had that whole huge prosthetic forehead. Ember Mist, do you remember your first cell phone? Well, my first cell phone was in my car. I had a car phone. And it was a type that there was like a little mount on the transmission tunnel. And the phone actually had a handset with a cord on it that ran into it. And then there was a box of some sort underneath my seat and a little antenna, a little squiggly antenna on the side of the car, on a side window. And then had that until like 1994 or so. And then went from that to get a cell phone. And I had a couple junky ones first, but there was a time when cell phones, you just got a cell phone. And of course, now you got smartphones, right? But I mean, I had a bunch of, and I mean, I had a StarTAC flip phone. I love that thing. That was such a cool phone. StarTAC flip phone. And then a couple Blackberries. Blackberries are cool because I love the keyboards in the Blackberries. But of course, the keyboards went away when you got bigger screens. And so, but I'm not sure. I've probably had 8 or 9 phones. Probably more than that, actually, now to think about it. But the first one I had was actually in the car, a car phone. So believe in yourself. My first mobile phone was from Radio Shack. It was $750 Canadian. Was pretty small, dial pad on handset. First bill was more than the phone cost. Oh. Jay Klein, I love my StarTAC. The StarTAC was it was a cool design. Like if you go to like the Museum of Modern Art and look at things they've got in there just because the designs are cool. I always thought the StarTech was just such a cool design. It looked cool. Like it was, I mean, it worked, it's functional, but it was cool. I had other phones that, I mean, they did the job, but they weren't that cool. Mark Miller, I'm only on my second smartphone. Do you have any phones before that though? Or Happy says, I've seen you on old car videos. I had a 74 Corvette convertible, 71 GTO Judge, 68 Oldsmobile convertible. Cool. Cool. I love that era of automobiles. Padre installed hundreds of the Motorola and Uniden car mount phones. Hot idea. We had a bag phone. I had a client once show up at my office. He's carrying this bag. Like, what's in the bag? Is my phone. I'm like, oh, but that's what you needed back before they actually had the self-contained thing. Oh my gosh. Bon Gondor, hey Mr. Lehto, how are you? I am fine. Thank you for asking. Yeah, sub GR77, same thing. Basically a car phone in a bag. Fast Fred says the Acme catapult was defective as the Coyote tried it in at least 10 different configurations, was injured regardless of where he stood. Is that one where he actually tried it more than once? Because there was a couple of things he would try it once and just move right on. But I seem to recall now that you point that out that it may have been like one time it smashed him here, and another time it flipped backwards, and you know the Motorola Razor, Johnny Knoxville. Yeah, Zach Morris had the big block phone, Saved by the Bell, says Zach, coincidentally. Oh. Blah blah blah. My first phone was a Uniden bag phone for $9.95 a month. But then were the minutes on top of that? Because I mean, back then, I mean, remember people actually worried about their minutes? Or oh, I have to make a long distance phone call. I remember a couple of years ago, for reasons far too complicated to explain, I was in, I think, Barbados. I think it was Barbados. I was in one of those Caribbean island nations, and my phone rang, and I look at it, and it's another attorney I work with, and I answer the phone. Hello, hey Steve, what you doing, man? Nothing. What are you doing? I got a question about the Johnson case. Oh, okay. Talk for a few minutes. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye. And I hung up. Put my phone back. Person had no idea that I wasn't in my office or down the street in my car. I was in Barbados. And it didn't even dawn on me. And it wasn't like $100 phone call for anybody. And a year or two after that, I was actually on a cruise ship. And on the cruise ship back then, you couldn't get internet service that easily with the carrier I was with. And we pulled into port someplace because of a medical emergency that somebody on the ship was having. They said we have to pull over this island. We weren't planning on stopping there. We have to offload a passenger who's having a medical emergency, but we'll make it up. We'll still show up on time tomorrow. We pull into this little port on an island. I don't know what island it was. I have no idea what island it was. And I thought, well, I wonder if I get a cell phone signal because then I could pick up my emails, right? So I go down to the balcony and I turn my phone on, and my phone rings, and my brother goes, "Hey, Steve, I had a question for you." I go, "What's that?" We had like a half-hour long conversation, and finally he goes, "What else is going on?" I said, "Well, I'm actually on the balcony of a cruise ship, and I'm in the port of whatever island this is." And he goes, "Really?" Because I just called your phone. I said, "I know." I go, "I was just checking my emails." Modern technology is mind blowing. It really is. It really is. Standard deviation. High school, did you have 8-track or cassette? Eight tracks would have been what we had, and then cassettes came in shortly thereafter. But yeah, so I remember the whole eight track thing, of course. Arthur Goldstein III. Hey, Steve, downtown Detroit and Hamtown loves you. Hamtown, of course, is a thing about Hamtramck, I'm guessing. But thank you. I love Detroit and Hamtown as well myself. Calicoccus is some of the old Chryslers had the rear view mirror on the dashboard. And so do many other vehicles, including like early Corvettes. Yeah, blah 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 says that his bag phone included long distance and roaming. Roaming was very important. Roaming. It's not me had a 2-hour plan back in 1997, unlimited after 7 p.m. There were a lot of people with those plans. It's like make the phone calls after 7 o'clock. Shaban, why is long distance calling even a thing? That's what I'm saying. I'm not even sure if it is. I mean, I know in some places. When I went to England last year, I had to contact my carrier and say, "Look, I'm going to be in England. What do I need to do?" And they said, "Oh, well, your phone will work as long as you do this and agree to pay us this on a daily rate." And it wasn't that much, but I used my phone over there, and it allowed me to stay in touch as necessary. But primarily, to me, my phone when I'm out of the office is a connection to my office, emails, texts, YouTube videos, and what have you. So, Diana C, cell phones really annoy me when you're using one or somebody else is using one. Carrie Stoltz had a cassette adapter for the 8-track player in my car. I've got a cassette adapter that allowed me to adapt a CD player to my cassette player. Oh boy. Fatty McButterpants, I had a $1,500 roaming charge in 2005. Really? Oh boy. Bon Gondor, my phone plan includes unlimited data, calling, text in Canada and USA. That's pretty common. But like I said, going to England or Europe, as I'm pretty sure I've been to France and Switzerland, and I'm pretty sure I brought my cell phones and they work there as well. So Carl's Corner, I still have all that 8-track stuff. Believe in yourself. I believe you, Cyberdoc. I had custom ringtones. There were MP3 clips. Yeah, I remember when you used to be able to just to load an MP3 easily in your phone and use it as your ringtone. For the longest time, I had a clip from The Simpsons of the sheriff telling Mrs. Simpson, "I don't think it's illegal to threaten to kill somebody." Oh, wait, it is. It's also illegal to put squirrels down your pants for the purposes of gambling. That'd be someplace my phone would ring. People go, "What the hell is that?" That's Chief Wiggum. What are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. Remember long distance calling cards? I remember those. I also remember the dumb Carrot Top commercials for the collect calls. Daniel Kester, yeah, there was a car mounted record player. I don't remember who had it either, but back when cars had gigantic interiors, there's a record player down there between the driver and the passenger. Only one turntable, though, so you couldn't do the old two turntables and a microphone thing. Jay Klein, Verizon put me on a plan I didn't want when I went to Europe. It took me 6 months to cancel. In this case, they actually had a plan. They go, here's the plan. If you authorize the plan, every day you use it, you'll get charged the daily rate. And then the second you come back, you'll not be using it anymore and it'll just cancel itself, kind of. And it worked out fine. So So Canadian Robot Lady's checking out where she sells the cell phones are a money pit in Canada, but you got to have one. It's how far apart everything is, I think. So there you go. But hey, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Everybody enjoyed having you here. And I've been telling people you're going to join us this week. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. Diana C., whatever happened to quadraphonic? So stereo, of course, is 2 channels. Quadraphonic was 4. Right and left rear, right and left front. And there was actually a station, radio station in Detroit, W4, WWWW 106.7. And they were actually attempting to broadcast quadraphonic. And the thinking was that people would eventually buy quadraphonic radios for their cars. Nobody did. And I'm not even sure whatever became of it or how long they tried it. So MHO at Steve Shirts drinks a lot on the job. I'm having a trouble. My throat is scratchy. And if I had a mute switch or a cough button, I could possibly clear my throat. But yeah, blah 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 quadraphonic or quadrophenia was an excellent Who album. Dave Sanchez, it was also a great movie. I actually saw the movie. It was on my cable not so long ago, but I did not watch it. I've seen it before. Johnny C. Bradley says WMMS Cleveland broadcast in quad. Did they really? For how long, I wonder? Dave Beddoes, AM stereo. Yeah, it's sad because with modern technology, AM can sound pretty good, but they could never get an industry agreement on some of that stuff. So I have a client who called me with a question, says Tom. He answered sleepily and asked if I disturbed his nap. Turns out he was actually in Albania. It was after midnight there. Oh my God. Kalakakis' radio stations all upgraded to quadraphonic technology, and also they upgraded to AM stereo. Since nobody got the systems for quad, they started using it for simulcasting on the extra tracks. I do know a guy who worked at a radio station in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan that experimented one time with playing 2 basketball games simultaneously at the same time on the station. And they put one game on the right channel, one game on the left channel. It didn't work very well because most people didn't understand it. They would just turn it on and hear this noise and go, oh, something's malfunctioning, and shut it off. Oh, boy. Feral Kitty, Mexican Radio, Wall of Voodoo. Yeah, Dan Boyd said you'd be screwed if you don't have a balance control. Conspicuous consumer double the advert revenue. When I worked in Bad Axe, we had an AM signal and FM signal. The FM was beautiful music. And during like March Madness for the basketball season or whatever, they would be playing, covering 3 games a night, 4 games a night. And so what they would often do is they would often go out and do 2 live games, one in the AM, one in the FM. And if the games were happening at the same time, but they'd actually send like a third crew out and have them record the game. And then that would get played. So we'd actually say, we're going to cover this game live, and we're going to cover this game. It'll be broadcast after this game. And I remember trying to juggle this stuff, but man, it was an advertising bonanza for the radio stations, because when Elkton Pigeon Bayport makes it into the playoffs, you can get advertisers in Elkton, Pigeon, and Bayport to advertise. So Underhill, what heathen radio has no balance? Um, it's not that it doesn't have the balance. It's that the people turn the radio on, hear the noise, and go, "Oh!" And who thinks to fix this? I'm going to take the balance, go all the way to one side or all the way to the other. Especially when your audience is, shall we say, a little older than we'd expect. So, anyway, we've been here now for 2 hours, 10 minutes, 25 seconds. We had no technical problems, and I did nothing different this week than I did compared to last week. So, it's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. So, I'll talk to you guys next weekend. As always, watch the channel during the week. Don't forget, I've got a second channel, and we'll do a live stream 1 week from today, 1 o'clock Eastern time. Until then, behave yourself. Bye-bye.